I already mentioned in episode 1 of this podcast series that the most frequent reason why people develop recurring anxiety disorders and even panic attacks is that they don't recognize specific warning signals in their unconscious properly, or even decide to ignore them completely. So, what do I mean by this? In order to get a better understanding of the processes at work inside you during a panic attack, let's first take a look at the brain, and specifically at the two completely different working methods of the conscious and the unconscious mind. An adult's brain contains about 86 billion nerve cells, or neurons as they are known. These are connected to each other by around 100 trillion synapses, which means that each individual brain cell is connected to at least 1,000 other brain cells. You may find it hard to imagine, but the number of potential combinations and connections of these neurons far exceeds the number of grains of sand on our beautiful planet. And we're only talking about the potential combinations in a single human brain here. But for that, our conscious mind uses relatively little of this incredible capacity. It is able to perceive a maximum of 8 pieces of information per second and requires an average of 3 seconds to produce a fully formed thought. It is used to be widely believed that we use just 10% of our brain. Of course, today we know this is not the case, because our unconscious mind makes full use of our gray cells' processing power. According to the latest research, it processes at least 80,000 pieces of information per second, making it 10,000 times faster, and you might even say cleverer, than the conscious mind we are so proud of. So, the real guiding force in our head is, and continues to be, the unconscious mind. And it, our unconscious, communicates with us with the help of our so-called gut instinct. I'm sure you know what I mean by our gut instinct. You're thinking about something, struggling to make a decision, weighing up the pros and cons, and then you get that feeling in your belly. You've no real basis for it, simply a better not, or sure, let's do it. This feeling is known as your gut instinct, and it's a result of your unconscious using its immense processing power to gather all the relevant data and compare it with all the information and experiences from your entire life. This involves taking incredible number of data points into consideration that you would never think about consciously, including body language, posture, tone of voice, choice of words, or even smell. For instance, numerous studies have shown that when choosing a mate, just from their smell alone, our unconscious brain is capable of judging whether we could produce healthy children with them. And all of this happens within a few tenths of a second. Now your conscious mind would be hopelessly overburdened by this flood of data, but not your unconscious. For it, it's a child's play. It makes a decision almost instantly, based on the data it analyzes, and then it shares that decision with you by talking to you through your gut. So the cleverest decision you can make is to listen to your gut. 'Cause if you don't, sooner or later it may well lead to some unpleasant consequences. Our unconscious mind is almost like a supercomputer, constantly updating us with an analysis of our current situation via our gut and recommending actions to take or to avoid. And this all happens for a single reason: to protect us from harm. People who refuse to listen to their gut and constantly act against their better judgment receive warning signals from their unconscious. Small ones at first, and then, if it becomes necessary, the alarm bell begins to ring. Everyone is aware of these serious warning signals, which we also term psychosomatic illnesses. So, you see, thanks to its neurotransmitters, our brain is able to trigger off genuine physical symptoms within seconds, even though the organs affected are perfectly healthy. I'll come back to this phenomenon in a moment, but first I'd like to take an analogy to show how these psychosomatic mechanisms actually work. Imagine a mother watching her 4-year-old son playing football. The little boy, with his lack of experience and limited perception of the world, represents the conscious mind. By contrast, the mother, with her decades of life experience and her capacity to think ahead, is the unconscious. Then imagine that the little boy is completely focused on playing football, kicking the ball and running, then kicking the ball again and running on, never realizing that he is running towards a busy road. But the alert mother, the unconscious, does realize this at once and shouts, "Stop! Stay where you are!" She may shout once, twice, and even a very loud third time. And if the boy still doesn't listen to her, she immediately races after him and pulls him away from the street, maybe at the very last moment. The boy is shocked, presumably, unable to grasp why his mother was so angry and grabbed him. And the same thing happens to you when you have a panic attack. Just like the mother in our example, your concerned unconscious grabs you by the collar, as it were, after you continue to ignore your gut instinct. And then it triggers off a panic attack to force you to rethink something in your life. So protecting you as best as it can and preventing you from potentially spending too long running in the wrong direction and getting hurt is one of the most important tasks your unconscious has. And it's why it takes such drastic measures at times. In this sense, panic attacks are less an illness and more a labor of love by our unconscious to shield us from more serious damage. Perhaps you can see now where all these shocking physical reactions that seem to emerge from thin air are really coming from. If you don't listen to your gut, then your unconscious goes ahead and takes some harder measures. And with the help of your neurotransmitters, it ensures that these unignorable physical symptoms force you to stop doing certain things, or at least reconsider them. The interconnections I'm talking about here have been completely verified by now scientifically. And we also have a pretty clear idea by now of what is happening in our bodies here. The actual processes involved are incredibly exciting. So of course, I'd like to go into them in more detail in another podcast. But the main thing that you need right now is a way, a technique so to speak, that permits you to clearly distinguish when your gut instinct is speaking to you, your clever unconscious in other words, or when this is merely your conscious mind. And it's exactly this vital technique that we're going to take a closer look at in the next episode of our podcast series. Till then, thanks again for listening. And if you're interested, you can also find further information on this whole subject on my website, the-anxiety-cure.com. May I wish you well and hope to have you back with us again soon. Your Klaus Bernhard.